Hello, friend. The mystical American Patriots Society is transmitting to you from beneath 4 million cubic feet of solid granite, in the burning heart of the Yellowstone caldera. This is a variety program for normal sandwich-eating Americans with some concerns about living in a deranged, post-Christian technocracy. So, keep your third eye on the sky and your ear to the ground, as Sumo and Smokestack connect your main brain vein to a higher plane. Are you ready? Stand by.
Good morning or afternoon. We're recording at an odd time today.
Indeed, we are. I feel all discombobulated about it.
Yeah. How's my audio? Am I coming in good? Are you recording yourself through my audio?
You're sounding pretty good.
Okay, good. I don't want to disrupt people, but we have some technical difficulties, some gastrointestinal difficulties.
Oh yeah.
Some plague difficulties. We've had so many difficulties.
Yeah, it's been a nutty weekend.
I have been not pleased with the amount of not social distancing I have seen in the world.
Oh, dude. I was flipping through Twitter last night, and I see this video of these morons in Nashville like partying in a club, and I'm just thinking, how removed from reality do you have to be at this point?
Well, that's why I go back to whenever I wonder about that. You have to remember, half of the population is below 100 IQ.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to communicate things to them.
Yeah.
Also, it's coming up on St. Patrick's Day.
Mm-hmm.
So the plague just may be God's punishment on the Irish. I don't know.
What did they ever do to anybody?
Well, I mean, let's not get into the sins of the Celts.
Okay.
But yeah, it's going to be, I recant my previous statement. Last show, which was some time ago, I said, well, it probably won't get that bad.
Uh-huh.
And I had previously thought it was going to be bad. And then I had like a day or two where I thought maybe it'll subside.
Yeah.
And then it did not.
No,
So I recant, and it's going to be horrible. And you should all have prepared. And now it's too late.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do. God in your
No, that's not true. There's not nothing you can do.
It's over.
I will say, we did that show, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and we took a good chunk of the show just ripping on genetics.
Yeah.
But distinguishing this particular virus from other, upper respiratory infections early on, the only way to really do it is with that PCR test, which is, a gene test. So I have to express some gratitude for the work of geneticists for making that test a reality so we can identify this. So I have to apologize to them for pooping on them.
No, I apologize to nothing for them. I still poop on them.
Okay.
It's irrelevant later about my later segment.
They're not going to let you have it. They're not going to let you have a test.
Here's the thing. In that segment, I said it's good for stuff like hereditary stuff, and that's just really tracking the heredity of the virus. It's the same thing.
Okay.
There's no contradiction here. You can't use the gene stuff you can't use the gene for like therapy or anything. You can just use it to identify which one.
Yeah, I just for epidemiological, control and stuff, knowing who to isolate, it's going to be very helpful.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's not without its uses. It's not the miracle they proposed.
Yeah, that's true.
Speaking of miracles, I was out.
The weird noise that you're all hearing is actually Sumo playing his ukulele.
I'm just strumming on it absentmindedly. I'm sorry. I've been working. This is a show where we honor both quasars and quarterstaffs. So I go to the future and I go back in time.
Oh.
Traveling the world this past week, I learned a few medieval tunes. Stuff like that. It's called Welsher Tans. It means washerwoman, the dance of the washerwoman. So that I really like the I learned some medieval lute music for ukulele from a guy.
It's very it's apropos in a time of plague, medieval.
I thought so too. I thought,
Yeah.
well, this is surely a sign.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think, we discussed your problems with aphantasia before, not being able to see images in your head.
It hasn't really improved.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if that's come up. Have you been trying really hard like you thought?
I've done a few sessions of just sitting down trying to visualize things, and it's funny, the harder I try, the less I'm able to do it. So if I just kind of casually try to pop something into my mind, maybe I can kind of get an outline of it.
Right.
Sort of a shape. But then I think my brain gets frustrated with itself and then just kind of gives up. So do you have a cure? Do you have a cure for me?
I think I might.
Okay.
I think I might have a cure for you because you said that you can see images in dreams sometimes.
Yes.
Right, well, one of my favorite lucid dreamer, what would you call them? Explorers is a guy named Ian Jaded. I can never pronounce the last name, Ian Jaded. But anyway, he has some great techniques for lucid dreaming. I think you should attempt to lucid dream.
Oh.
And maybe this will awaken your pineal gland third eye to the ability to produce images while awake. Do you know what lucid dreaming is?
Yeah, I had one when I was a kid. It was incredible.
Yeah. So for the listeners who don't know, which I can't imagine is very many since our listeners are so woke.
They are woke, yeah.
Is lucid dreaming is where you're dreaming, but you suddenly become aware that you are in a dream. Most of the time when you're dreaming, you're not like aware you're in a dream. It feels like it's real.
Right.
But this is a dream where you become aware you're in the dream, but you don't wake up, and then you are able to control the dream. It's like that scene in The Matrix where he is in the white room and he's just able to make stuff appear.
Yeah.
It's like that.
No, it was incredible. When I was a kid, I had one, and I realized I was dreaming, and then I was, man, I'm gonna fly, and I'm flying around, and I go to this swamp, and I'm jumping off the tops of alligators, and they're trying to bite me, but you can't get me. It was great.
Right.
It was fantastic.
Right. So because there's a large debate about whether or not the spirit world is any different from the dream world. I'm not sure where I stand on that, but you can, if you're not good at lucid dreaming, and I'm not an expert lucid dreamer, but there are some techniques you can use to try and get yourself to lucid dream.
Sweet.
If you suffer from aphantasia, listeners, the inability to produce images in your head while you think about them, this is a technique you can use. So here's a couple. One is Ian recommends this. Throughout the day, just stare at your hand for about 5-10 seconds. Do that maybe 5-6 times a day and make a habit of it.
Why?
Okay, well, you see, now you're questioning. That's part of the problem. But I'll explain it to you. So when you look at something in a dream, it never remains static. It shape shifts, it changes color, it turns into something else, it becomes transparent. Things in dreams are not static. If you ever focus your attention on something in a dream, it becomes something else.
Okay.
All right. Well, if you focus your attention on your hand and you make a habit of it, sooner or later you will do that while you're dreaming. And when you do, your hand will shapeshift or change in some way, and then you will instantly be like, oh, I'm dreaming.
Interesting.
It's like an Inception hack. This is like your totem, like in Inception, the little things. Because see, look, in the dream, you may not have your totem with you. This is the problem.
Right.
Right. And you may not remember, oh, I'm dreaming. You may think it's real, so you won't think to look in your pocket. But you always have your hands with you in a dream. Mm-hmm. Most people have never had a dream where they can't think, oh, where's my hand? And then not be able to find it. So you make your own body part your Inception totem, which is what they should have done in the movie.
Yeah.
Very foolish. But, and then you look at it, and when your hand shape shifts, you'll be like, oh, I'm dreaming. And then you will instantly become lucidly aware of your dream state.
Cool.
And if you can do this, make a habit of doing this multiple times, it might perchance awaken your third eye potentials.
Okay, I'm going to try it.
Okay, another technique is to just question things throughout the day. Like, just go, is this real? Because you never ask that in a dream, right? And you don't ask that in your daily life either, though you should.
I feel like if I made a habit of that, I would quickly lose touch with reality.
That's what we're trying to get at.
Oh, you want me to lose touch with reality?
Well, yeah, because reality is somewhat constructed, right? So if we in a dream, let's say you're jumping on your alligators' heads, and you're like, oh, I hope they don't eat me, right? Or you're being chased by a kitten carnival.
Okay.
Something. And you never in your dream stop to ask, wait a minute, is this even really a problem? Because then you'd be like, well, obviously it's not. And then you'd wake up like, this can't be real. But the thing is, in your real life, if you stop and say, is this really a problem? A lot of your problems that you think you have also are not problems. They're also just made up. So throughout the day, when you encounter something, just say, is this really a problem? And that'll help you in your waking life a lot, for sure, because a lot of it isn't.
One of the things I tell my kids constantly is, this is not a real problem.
Right. Yeah. And that's what you need that's the attitude you need to have for your dream, is to get in the habit of saying that. And then you'll be like, when you're being chased by, some monster from the Black Lagoon, wearing his bow tie, and then he charges at you, and then you're like, wait a minute, is this a real problem? And then now you're lucidly awake.
Cool. Okay.
So these are 2 methods that you can all use to begin lucid dreaming today.
All right.
Patent.
4 easy payments.
Even though I already said I didn't invent these techniques, I'm going to take them.
Okay.
I don't know if you can copyright lucid dreaming techniques, so.
Nah, probably not.
I doubt it. You can't copyright games.
No, I didn't know that.
You can copyright the artwork for stuff, but like if you can't, that's like why Words with Friends can exist, because the game mechanics of Scrabble cannot be copyrighted. I always thought that was unfair.
You think you could get a process patent on that? Yeah,
but no, games are
not. It's a process for producing amusement.
Yeah, I mean, I think lawyers have tried to argue that, but no. No. Anyway, I got a message from one of our listeners, and they said they listened to us while working out, lifting weights.
Okay.
And I thought, that is excellent. That's exactly what we need to happen. All of you out there need to be listening to us while lifting weights, and or doing some other exercise, maybe jumping rope, maybe boxing. I would like to hear us played on every MMA gym in America.
Yeah, man.
Now, I say this as someone who I personally cannot listen to anything while I exercise.
Really?
I exercise in complete silence.
That's strange.
Well, it's because for me, exercise is sort of a ritualistic activity.
Okay.
Right. Well, that's one of the reasons that I'm Christian, because it has such a strong emphasis on the body. Right. And so I don't listen to. I have to have absolute, complete silence. I must only hear the sound of my own heart and my own breath. And I'll tell you how I do it. I think this will be helpful for people in the plague times while you're quarantined. Quarantine can be a very productive time period. You don't have to let it slow you down.
Oh man, we're already embracing it at my house. More on that later.
Yeah, Isaac Newton, he invented calculus while under quarantine.
Whoa.
Yeah, so you should all do that, something like that, something equivalent. And Shakespeare wrote King Lear under quarantine. A lot of people don't know that. People used to have to do quarantines all the time. So this is just getting back to this is trad. Very trad.
I knew there was a reason I was excited about it.
Yeah, it's extremely trad. Everyone should be excited. But I've already got my doublets out.
What's a doublet? Wait, what's a doublet?
That's the little vest they would wear in Renaissance times. It's it's a thick vest without sleeves that's sort of padded, like quilted.
Okay. Yeah, like under your armor or whatever?
Yeah, you could wear it under your armor, but you could also just wear it around town.
Okay.
It was double. It was like padding for your armor and also just like a, fancy coat.
Okay, cool.
I think the nobles made theirs a bit more fancy to show like, oh, I don't have to always wear my armor when, I have a fancy doublet and then an armor doublet. But I just have the one doublet. But I'm still wearing it because it's trad. But Yeah, so being in quarantine does not have to be a bad time. You can do a lot of great things, one of which you can get in great shape, right?
Yeah.
So here's a method. You have to figure out your own method. But what I do in my complete silence workout, I get up in the morning. This is what I would do before like doing family things like taking kids to school and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that's no longer happening because we're in the Black Death.
Right.
But I get up in the morning. I go into the bathroom, strip completely naked.
Mm-hmm.
Step number 1. It's always best to exercise in the nude for several reasons that are hard to explain, but you'll figure it out once you start doing it.
Okay.
2, I light a candle, either literally or in my mind. And that is the flame of life.
Okay.
Okay. And then you do extremely rigorous calisthenics / dumbbell exercises for about 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay.
Just going, change exercise, go again, push up, like that. Like really, boom, 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 boom.
Mm-hmm.
Just breathing. And then when you have your blood just moving all throughout your body, because blood may be condensed light. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But there's something, the life is in the blood. And once your blood is moving and you've got your, there is no remission of sins without the shedding of blood. That's in the Bible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
Sure.
I'm just saying, once you get your blood moving,
Mm-hmm.
right, and you're panting, you've done 30 minutes, then you sit down on the floor in front of your candle, and then I do my daily morning prayers.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you do this all in the nude, as you were in Eden, in the Garden of Eden, right? And then this is a highly spiritual practice. And I really would like to see all of our MAPS members embrace nude bodybuilding. That should be a thing that we all do.
Okay.
How often do you do it? I mean, I know being a clone, it's hard to do things that have bacterial infection.
I've never done what you just described, and I'd feel weird putting my naked butt on the floor.
Oh, well, when I sit down, I usually throw a towel down.
Okay. Well, that's
not
helpful.
Always.
Yeah.
Because I feel like after this ritual, I am nearly completely clean, even though I'm very sweaty.
Okay, sweaty but clean. Okay.
Like interiorly sweaty, or interiorly clean, because I'm no longer interiorly sweaty.
Well, so my shack in the woods doesn't have a very effective path to it. So it's constantly being tracked in with forest, detritus.
Right.
So I'm gonna have to find some way to keep the floor clean enough to do stuff on. I got a like a little mat in the bathroom. Really? Yeah. My bathroom's too small. I don't have a. I have to do it out.
You gotta think of it like a prison workout. You got a 9x6, 8x6 cell.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. And that's all. That gets rid of all of the complaints, like, oh, I don't have a gym, I don't have the equipment. Like, you can do it all right there.
Prison workout, minimalist,
right?
Structured and restrictive. I got it.
Right, structured and restrictive. You got to put limits on yourself. You can power lift if you want to, but I don't recommend it.
Okay.
Because a lot of guys get injured. A, and then B, it doesn't give you the best bodily aesthetics. B, and then C, it's of questionable practicality. Like when you do things out in the wild, when you're like hiking or farming or fighting or whatever, a lot more like lower weight, high rep stuff.
Yep.
But if you're powerlifting, it's like I can lift 900 pounds one time, which is great. I don't dislike that. Very impressive. But there's a lot of work involved in getting to that for the amount of injury risk. So, plus, it's really hard to do that naked.
Yeah, that would be difficult.
Yeah. Well, so like I also do it not only to return to Eden, but also as a throwback to the ancient Greek heroes, because gymnasium means the place where you strip down.
Oh, is that what it means?
Yeah, gymnasium means the place to strip or the place of nudity. So I try to honor that. Okay. Because they didn't have yoga pants.
Uh-huh.
You didn't have workout gear. There were no elastic. You just what are you going to do your push-ups in your toga? No.
I try to eschew all elastic in my life anyway.
Yeah. So you just strip down.
Yeah.
Just like Thucydides,
Mm-hmm.
and you jump on your gymnastic rings, or you do your push-ups and you go.
Cool.
And that's how you become. That's how you become better. And that's what I recommend for everyone when they're listening to our. They can listen to us. I don't listen to anything, but some people like that.
Okay. Do you think this can be transferred into a gardening ritual?
Absolutely.
If I'm out there digging in the dirt.
Sunlight on the testes
Mm-hmm.
is an extreme testosterone producing thing. And I didn't just make that up. That's not even a bro science thing. That's an actual science thing.
My neighbors may object to this.
Well, it's your property.
What what if I just wear some very sheer clothing?
That's true. The sunlight produces great health benefits and testosterone boost if you just get a lot of it on your skin. So if you just strip to like the waist, you're still absorbing a lot to the skin.
So I've had a terrible stomach flu the past few days, and one of my get well regimens has been sunning myself for a good 20-30 minutes every day.
Has it helped?
I think so. I'm on the rebound today. I'm feeling a lot better.
Yeah, people are like half plant. They need the sun.
Yeah.
Need the sun. So you had stomach flu.
I did, yeah. So does my son had it too, and we were just spewing fluids all over the place. It was like an
extra. The front end or the back end?
Oh, both at the same time.
Both at the same time.
It was incredible. Yeah, no, my son repainted his whole room.
Nice.
It was quite the weekend.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue because I was also traveling America in the van. I encountered. It was a real experience, but it was also a spiritual vision of poop.
Of poop.
Poop and excrement in general.
Yeah.
I was driving through Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, as everyone that's been to Nebraska knows, Nebraska has public toilets that are worse than Bulgaria.
I didn't know this.
Yeah. Nebraska is just, I don't know what it is. I don't know. Their people cannot keep a clean toilet. So anyway, I have to go to the bathroom, right? I stop at this service station. I go inside.
Yep.
Do my business. Now, here's the problem. It's a long bathroom. And at the other end of the bathroom there's the door, and then the toilet's over here, and in between is this drain in the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know what the drain's there for, but it's just there. I don't know why some bathrooms have a drain in the middle of them. So anyway, I go and I flush the toilet, start to wash my hands. And then when I finish washing my hands, I turn around, and all of this waste is just pouring up from that drain in the middle between me and the door. And now I can't get out. And it's just continuing to bubble up. And it's like urine and feces, and there's worms in it. It's gross.
That's horrible.
It was nightmarish. And it doesn't stop. It just continues to come up.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where, then it's on my feet, and then I'm trying to walk through it, and I'm slipping, and I almost fall down. It's horrible. I'm like, there's I don't know, have you ever seen sludge worms?
No.
Sludge worms these are a kind of worm that live. Have you ever seen drain flies?
No.
Well, drain flies are, especially in hot climates, they're these little, they look almost like a large gnat.
Okay.
And the sludge worm is the larva of the gnat.
Okay.
And the drain fly. And the drain fly goes down the drain when it's obviously not being water poured down, and it lays its eggs in the remains of excrement.
Mm-hmm.
And it flies back out, and then the larva hatch. So there's all these sludge worms everywhere. It's horrific, right? And then the guy comes in. He's like, "What are you doing?" He's this, I don't know, Indian guy. Well, you're gonna do not use. I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "The sign, do not use." And the sign has fallen off the door. I didn't see it because it was on the ground. Right?
Wait, this really happened? This wasn't a dream that you had?
No, this is a real thing that then turned into a spiritual vision.
Whoa, this really happened to you.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
What did I say that made you think it didn't really happen?
Well, you said you had a vision of excrement, and I thought, okay, he's imagining this whole scene, and is he standing washing his hands in the bathroom?
No. This was really me and a Hindu man.
And there was really crap coming up out of the floor.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, this is horrible. Okay,
Yeah,
continue.
it was awful. Okay. Now, this is going to get confusing because later this does involve like a dream sequence.
Okay.
Right now, I'm not in the dream sequence.
Okay, we're in real life still. Man, that's even worse. All right, keep going.
So it's awful. And so the sign that he put up on the door for do not use had fallen off the door before I came in and was like laying on the floor several feet away.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I didn't see it.
Oh, gotcha.
And so then I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like screaming inarticulately in Hindi or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he's rushing to get a mop, and his wife is very apologetic and everything. She's a lovely lady. Gave me a free Coca-Cola.
That was nice of her.
And then I bought some bleach wipes. Took my shoes off, just bleached my shoes, right? The bottoms of them from where I had to step in all this stuff. Horrific. Okay. Anyway, then I get in the car and I keep driving. I'm driving back, and then I get into Arkansas.
Okay.
Stop for the night. Open up the van. Put up the tent. I have a tent that attaches to the van.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you're out on the side of the road. Lots of diamonds, in the ground in Arkansas. Did you know that?
I did not. No.
Yeah. That's why they have a big diamond on a lot of their state seals. If you're out in the middle of nowhere, Arkansas, and you just like rake the ground for a while, you'll come up with some little tiny diamonds.
No kidding.
Some of them can be quite big. Some of them, some people will find some that's like the size of a good handful, and it's quite expensive.
Wow.
A lot of people like to do that for a hobby. But Arkansas is the land of diamonds. But anyway, I didn't find any diamonds on this trip. I was just camping in the car with my bleach shoes. And then I thought, I was lying there in bed at night, and I thought, well, in a sleeping bag, really. And I thought, that is exactly, this is where it became a spiritual vision.
Okay.
I said, that is exactly the condition of the human soul, isn't it?
Mm.
Because on the outside it looks fine, but deep down in the piping, like in the heart of the person, is all this just shit.
Yeah.
Right? And we don't like to ever pay attention to it, because fixing it, like you've got some clog way down there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like fixing it is going to be this huge thing, and you have to tear apart all these things that aren't broken.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You have to break up the floor. You have to put up a do not use sign. You have to rip up the toilet. You have to tear out the wall, maybe. Getting to the problem is going to be awful. So it's easier to just ignore it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we just put up a do not use sign on certain parts of ourselves, and we just don't go there and look at it. Right? And the reason people get mad at God is he's always demanding that you go fix your pipes. And then you're like, I don't want to do that. It's going to be gross. And God's like, yeah, it is going to be gross, but it's going to come up at some point when you don't want it to. And that's where all the evil in the world comes from. Like all of the evil in the world is just bubbling up from what was already there, but kept hidden.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, I understand this. I understand this vision, but then I go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm asleep in the Arkansas wilderness, that's when I have a dream relating to this incident. So the first part was real, and the Hindi man is real.
Okay.
And the dream part is also real, but just in the dream space.
Okay.
That make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So here's the dream. Okay, so I'm in this city, big white city, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm walking through the streets, and there's all these people there. Everyone is nice and very clean and metropolitan and well-to-do. They're having their coffee, and they're doing their yoga, and they have their hemp oil smoothies or whatever. And we're walking through, and I look up, and I'm being led through the streets by this man in a white robe.
Okay.
With a white hood on. I can't see the back of his head. He's just wearing a white hood. And we walk through, and I look at all the the stuff, the jamba juices and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is quite beautiful and good. And we were walking along this canal. And we follow the canal and we're going downhill. And we go down and down and down. And as we get closer and closer, we get to the edge of the city, I see that the canal is going down to like this river.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to the river and I see that the river is just full of all of the city's sewage.
Yeah.
Right? So all this beautiful city has a sewage side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because every beautiful thing has to have the other thing also.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone focuses on the beautiful part and they ignore the sewage. And so then the guy pulls up his robe and he starts wading through the sewage.
Ooh.
He beckons me to follow him. So I do, and I try to pull up my pants as best I can. And I walk through and we walk further and further into the sludge till we get under a bridge. Then we get under another bridge. And we're really, really deep down now to where we come to the place where there's just these pipes pouring the sewage out, and it's hot and steamy just into the river, just shooting it out like waterfalls from all these people, right?
Yeah.
And there's like tissue in it and used condoms and all sorts of horrible things, needles.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? It's gross. And as we approach, I see two men sitting on a raft underneath it. And they are also dressed in white. They're not in any way clean. I mean, in any way dirty.
Right.
Completely immaculate. And these are two monks sitting under this bridge. Right? And I realize they're the most holy men in the city. And then one of them stands up and he says, "The trick is to find God even here." And then I woke up.
Weird.
Right? And I think that was a true dream. You know, the Homer, he distinguished between the dreams which come from the gates of horn and those which come from the gates of ivory.
Okay.
About that?
No.
So if a dream came from horn, through the gates of horn up from the underworld, then it was a true dream.
Okay.
Because for two reasons. If you look this up, the reason they give is that the word in Greek for horn sounds sort of like the word in Greek for true, and the word in Greek for ivory sounds sort of like the word in Greek for deceit.
Okay.
But also, I think that they missed the point in that ivory is like a fake horn, right? Mm-hmm. Ivory is like a false horn. So it's a false, because ivory is made of like dentite.
Okay.
Right. But it sort of looks like a horn, but if you try to use it to shape things like you would a horn from a cow or something, it's not going to work. Gotcha. So I think that's why they did that. But anyway, I felt like this was a dream from horn, a true dream. And then I woke up and the sun was coming up in Arkansas. And then I thought, well, what could that mean? And I think what it is spiritual waste is as impossible to avoid as physical waste. Mm-hmm. So, you eat something and then you have to poop later, right? Right. But you have to eat. Eating the thing is good, right? And the poop is also in its own way good, right? But then when so the reason waste happens is because to live you take things in, but you can't take in all of a thing, and so there's some left over. Okay. Right, and that's what happens. Like, let's say you have a friendship. You can't take in all of your friend, and so it produces a waste product. Like, let's say your friend has a better job than you. Mm-hmm. And then so you take in your friend, you hang out with them, but that produces a bit of jealousy because they have something more than you do. Yeah. Right? Or they have, say, a prettier wife. Mm-hmm. Or they are just better looking. Or they do something which angers you. It's impossible to go through life and not produce these spiritual waste products, because everything that you take in a spiritual way, you cannot take in all of it, and it must have a piece of it which must be rejected. Mm-hmm. But the trick is, see, a lot of people have always focused on never having the waste, and that leads to guilt and hypocrisy, unmet expectations, and frustration, because it can never happen. Yeah, like they think I just shouldn't have any jealousy. I just shouldn't have any hatred. I just shouldn't have, and then they pretend that they don't, and that creates all this hypocrisy because they think that they'll fake it till they make it, right? Yeah. But the trick, just like physical waste, because again, just like new bodybuilding, everything, the body teaches you everything. The spiritual waste is only bad if it doesn't get out of your system.
Right.
And if just like you dump the excrement, and what does the excrement become but the source of the renewal of life?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's fertilizer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so if you have the jealousy, if you have the anger, if you just, when it comes on, if you just give it up in forgiveness or confession, this is the point of that.
Right.
It immediately flips back over into renewed spiritual growth instead of rot.
Ah.
So if you acknowledge it, pump it out of your system,
Mm-hmm.
and it immediately flips over. And so that's why actually these things, that's why you can say that God is a jealous God and God is a wrathful God. People say, how could God be jealous? Because the waste products exist even for God, but God just processes them through himself, and it flips over into higher holiness, right? It only becomes a problem when it sticks in you and becomes rotting. Like it sticks in the pipe and just rots and festers till it explodes,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That's, if everything's working cleanly, like then it just comes out. And that's why the monks told me the trick is to find God even here.
Mm-hmm.
Because that point also was part of the plan, because that's the point of renewal.
Right.
For renewed growth.
So
right?
the jealousy is the filthiness, but then the confession and forgiveness and repentance that you do to remedy that jealousy is the renewed holiness, or the
Right,
way
when
to
you
make
expel
it
it out of your
yeah.
system.
Yeah.
Like it's not a problem to produce poop and feces, right?
Mm-hmm.
It only becomes a problem if you become constipated. It's not a problem to produce urine unless you can't get rid of it. Like
Right.
And the urine is actually a way that you take the toxins out of your blood and out of your body that have built up. You put them into the waste products and they go away. If you stop being able to do this, your body becomes poisoned and you die. It's exactly the same spiritually. These things have to be produced, these waste products, all these spiritual emotions and sins. But then it's only a problem if they're not removed from the system.
So, but doesn't this idea sort of lend itself to a kind of licentiousness and be like, oh, all my sinning is natural, so I'm not going to try to not do it?
Well, I mean, it can, I suppose, but Paul struggled with this too. He said, the good that I would do, I do not do, and the evil that I would not do, that I do.
Right.
Right. You can't, the point is, you cannot not do this.
I guess that the things that come up at, the inner sins that come up in the heart. Yeah. Right. It's like, there's nothing you can do about it. It's your outward actions that maybe you can control. And so if you're dealing with that spiritual waste in a righteous way, they don't fester and turn into outward actions, kind of a thing.
Well, like Christ said, you're like whitewashed tombs. The outside are very nice and clean, but inside are full of rotten bones.
Right.
And the point is, what you got to do is you got to get the rot out.
Mm-hmm.
Just eject it out, right? And then it doesn't much matter. Like, it matters a lot less what exists. People focus on the exterior.
Yeah.
Right? Just like the guy that wanted to put up a do not use sign on his perfectly clean bathroom, but inside was full of rot.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When you tried to actually use it, that's the same thing. But it's not that the waste products are bad. It's just that they were stuck. Right?
Okay.
It's got to move out. It's got to go down to the sewer where it can become a place of renewal.
Mm-hmm.
That's why these things exist. Like people wonder, like, how can God say he's a jealous God? Because isn't jealousy bad? And how can God be wrathful and vengeful? Aren't those things bad? Right? But the thing is, God did not make any bad thing. Mm-hmm. Not even these emotions. They themselves are spiritual fertilizer. They're only a problem if they remain inside you.
Well, I mean, there's such a thing as righteous jealousy and wrath. I mean, it is. Right. I mean, humans don't usually ever do it, but
Right. There is, but there's also that. What I mean is, those things just appear spontaneously.
Sure.
Like, you can't stop them. They're just a waste product that's produced by living. Like, you can never stop them from happening.
I guess that's what I'm trying to tease out is the difference in this between, and a sin in the heart, a problem in the heart and the way you're thinking, and then to something you do. If you're jealous of somebody, okay, you can deal with that, or you can let it fester. But then if it festers, eventually you rob them or you hurt them out of your jealousy.
Right. Well, the festering is the problem.
Right. Well, I think the jealousy is the problem too, though.
But only because it festered. When you have the jealousy, if you just immediately, here's a way you can flip that over. You have the jealousy, okay, so then you confess the jealousy, and instead of that, you pray for more blessings for the person. This is why you pray for your enemies. Right. Because then that's what that does, is it removes the jealousy from the system. That's like the poop just being out into the toilet. Mm-hmm. And then that goes down and becomes fertilizer for a new green thing to grow. And so you're given the thing, the waste product comes to you so that you can pass it through to more glory, basically. Mm-hmm. In this way of thinking about it, even your sins become redemptive.
It's an opportunity for repentance and forgiveness and
right. Well, this is the thing. Sin is only a problem if you do it wrong. I've said this before. Like sin is the path of redemption. This is why everything is all in all. Because look, you couldn't be saved if you weren't awful enough to kill Jesus. Like you have to. This is the sort of a spiritual paradox. It's like unless we were wicked enough to kill God, we wouldn't have been saved.
Okay.
Right. So you can't. You can't. This is why you shouldn't worry too much. And I know that people always say, "Isn't this not taking things seriously?" And maybe to some degree, but also I just view it as this is a way that you explain like why these bad things can exist. Because people are like, well, why did God allow evil to exist? It's like, well, the evil is just really like a spiritual fertilizer. It's meant to be pushed out and it becomes the place of renewal. But it's only a problem because we hang on to it.
Well, there was a time where it didn't exist in man.
Or did it? Did Adam experience jealousy? I mean, if it didn't exist in him, then how could they have been tempted in the first place, right?
I don't know.
See, this also answers the question of the fall before the fall. Mm-hmm. Because people are like, well, how could Adam and Eve sin if they weren't already fallen? Mm-hmm. Right? Like if they're perfect, then how could they sin? And the thing is that these things exist. This is why the angels could sin also, because these things exist in you, and they must exist because they're just spiritual waste products, just like physical waste products. You cannot have. It's sort of, if you think about it and you meditate on it, I think you'll find it's logically inconsistent to have a 100% efficient biological system, which everything it took into itself, it just incorporated 100%. Mm-hmm. It had no waste products. Like even when you breathe, right? You breathe in the oxygen, but then when I exhale, that's a waste product, and that feeds the plants.
Right.
Right, and then the plant. So you have this yin and the yang thing, right? So that's why God made the sludge worms and the drain flies, because they're not evil. They just exist in the opposite spectrum that serve as part of that thing to complete the cycle of renewal, mm-hmm. right? And so that's the same is true in the spiritual realm also. There's these things that exist, and then these things that are evil, right? But they're only evil in so much as they reside in your heart. They reside deep down in the pipes. Once you expel them, they become fertilizer for renewed spiritual growth. And you find this, like when you have hatred, if you expel it and go to forgiveness, that hatred transforms itself into renewed spiritual growth. Same is true of jealousy, anger, all of the sins. Once you've expelled them, they become the place of spiritual flourishing.
So is your view of the fall sort of a loss of ability to process spiritual waste?
Yes, because the fall is the turning inward of the self. I have a very interesting fall thing we can talk about sometime. But okay. But basically the fall is the collapsing inward of the creature. So all outward focus, instead of being outwardly focused, you start thinking, like, I'll just go through this very quickly. Like, right now, are you thinking about your little toe?
No.
Right. But now you are, now that I've mentioned it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But what if you stub your little toe?
Oh, yeah.
And you think about it all day long.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The same is true with your finger, or let's say your stomach. You go throughout the day. Do you think about your stomach? Not really, unless it starts getting hungry, or if you're having a stomach ache like you've had recently.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then you think about it all day long.
Oh, yeah.
And so the message is that when an organism is properly functioning, you're agnostic to it.
Okay.
You don't even notice it's there. It's just serving its purpose, and its purpose is exterior. It's experiencing the world. It's doing good things, right?
Right.
When it's injured and when it's hurting, you notice it.
Mm-hmm.
The same is true of your mind. Like the mind was not meant to be an object of its own knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like when you're constantly aware of yourself, that's a sign that your spirit is hurting.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So because you're so constantly aware of your own self, you're constantly in your own head, constantly thinking about yourself, that itself is a sign that you are spiritually injured. Just like if your toe isn't hurt, you never think about it. If your soul isn't hurt, you never think about yourself.
Mm-hmm. So narcissism is like the common thread of all sin.
Right, because the thing was, you shall be like God, right? So then the creature becomes, instead of focused outward towards God, the creature turns inward in a cyclical loop upon himself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then that's where it gets broken, because now it's injured, right? And then you're always thinking about yourself. And so that's why when you notice that you're doing the things you ought to do, you never think about yourself at all. Like when you're absorbed in a good piece of music, or when you're helping a friend or something, all thought of yourself just goes away and you focus on that thing.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I was helping somebody do some remodeling last week, and I'll be honest, I wasn't looking forward to all the exertion. I was already tired when I got out there, but you know, we ended up working. I stayed there till 1 a.m. You know, trying to get this project banged out, and I finally, quit thinking about myself and how tired I was, and just focused on helping my friend. And it ended up, and then that's when the energy kicks in, and it's not a drudge anymore. It was fun,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. If you actually, I do believe that if we were actually as we were supposed to be, you would never get tired.
Yeah.
Like those who renew their hope in the Lord will mount on wings of eagles. They will run and not grow tired. They will walk and not grow weary.
Yeah.
It says in the Bible. That's actually true. Like when you're in the right space and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and living how you're supposed to, you feel an insane amount of energy than when you're turned in on yourself. I think you might still sleep just for the enjoyment of sleep. You know, because sleep it can be nice.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Like Jesus slept at least one time, you know.
Yeah.
On the boat.
Yep. So weariness and fatigue are somewhat of a spiritual symptom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that if you were actually, C.S. Lewis used to say that if one could run without growing tired, you'd probably do nothing else.
Oh.
But like run and jump all the time.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely right about that. You only grow tired because you are sinful.
Yeah.
Once you stop being sinful, this nude bodybuilding is a good path to this. I recommend it as a spiritual exercise.
Okay.
Right. It's all connected. It's all connected. So anyway, what did you want to talk about? After your people skills, we're going to talk about relativistic space travel and the extraterrestrial hypothesis. But I want to know what you want to talk about.
Well, I want to talk about gardening in the context of embracing the quarantine.
Oh, good.
Okay. So it was interesting because this you talk about this dream with this beautiful city, and then all the filth and the excrement is revealed in the course of the dream. And I was thinking about, man, that's going to be real life for a lot of people around the world right now. that are trapped, and it's already been so in some areas of the world, and I don't know for places like New York City or San Francisco where the logistics and the just in time city management systems are so fragile, what that's going to look like in the next couple weeks. At the time we're recording the show, the kind of the restrictions are just starting to come online. We're right at the beginning of this thing. But, all that cleanliness just sort of breaks down so easily. But luckily, for me, and maybe some of our listeners are out in the burbs, and you're stuck in your home, but you got a little patch of grass maybe somewhere. You got a little southern exposure. And, I said we're really embracing the quarantine lifestyle and mindset at my home. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is breaking in a brand new garden bed.
Ooh, nice.
And this
what are you growing in?
I'm probably going to start with a lot of greens, kale, collards, mustard greens, beets, that kind of stuff. And then probably in a few weeks, I'll start beans. Beans, by the way, are the survival food of choice. They are the stuff.
My problem with gardening is that I just don't like vegetables.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big problem with me in gardening. I think I was more of a herd. I come from people that kept herds, I think, rather than agriculture. This is just what I assume based on my dietary.
Do you currently have any livestock?
I did when I was younger. We did have when I lived with my grandparents. I grew up right next door to my grandparents, and we kept 500 cows or so, like that.
Oh wow!
Which isn't a huge amount by cattleman standards, but it's a decent amount.
Yeah.
And I drink a lot of milk. I drink probably half a gallon a day, something like that. And I eat a lot of cow. I don't waste any part of the animal.
That's good.
I'm a true Native American.
Well, son, with the possible food shortages happening in the near future, you may need to embrace some gardening practices.
Maybe, but there's not that many. There's a lot of cows around me. I could trade with some farmers or just kill them when they're not looking, I suppose.
You're gonna resort to cattle wrestling?
That's
how you get shot. That's how you get shot. Okay, an aside on this quarantine lifestyle. Through my day job, I have a fair amount of exposure to defense industry and firearms and that kind of stuff. And talking to some guys that run some pretty large gun shops, they saw this thing coming a little bit, and they stocked up on AR-15s and shotguns and all kind of stuff. They got cleaned out. Absolutely. Line out the door, people coming in. And a lot of them were like, well, I don't really like guns. I've never liked guns, but now that this beautiful little facade of civilization looks like it might, even in the slightest way, start breaking down, they're like, oh man, I got to get me a gun. And so that all these people that were against guns before are now suddenly buying guns for themselves, which is a incredibly interesting phenomenon in its own right. But people are thinking about this and they're saying, man, there's not going to be any juries for the next couple of months. An overcrowded prison is going to get slammed by this virus, and there's probably going to be a lot of early release parole of people that probably shouldn't have been paroled.
Right. You only have two options: you let people go, or you just kill them on site.
Yeah.
Because if you have a large gathering, then you start to infect the.
This is a big problem. Yeah.
Both ways.
Yeah. And there's a lot of folks in prison that are going to get released one way or the other, and just arrests aren't going to be happening.
Right.
In an outbreak situation, all that arresting authority is going to be used to quarantine sick people and to enforce curfews. And so, other stuff is necessarily has to slide. And so I think people all of a sudden realize this and are now arming themselves. But back to the gardening thing. This is something that really anybody can do on a very small patch of land. And there's a few tricks to getting your garden up and running quickly. So first one is pick a south facing area of your property that gets a lot of sun. And then just dig the whole thing up. Just dig it up, chop it up, mix up the soil, dig about 12, 18 inches down. This is the worst part of this process. Now, if it's like any suburban soil, it's probably not very good. So if there's some woods near you, take your wheelbarrow, go into the woods, blow the leaves back, and scrape up a bunch of that topsoil, fill the wheelbarrow with it, okay? The woods are a giant compost pile. I mean, that's what the woods are.
I agree.
If you don't have woods, you can get up under the shrubs around your home or your neighbor's shrubs. You know, think about that. You've got this holly bush that's been sitting there growing and shedding leaves and or whatever for a decade. Underneath that bush is some really nice loamy soil. Dig all that stuff up, fill your wheelbarrow, dump it in with the soil that you just dug up in your garden patch that probably isn't very good. That's gonna put a lot of nutrients and water holding ability, and it's gonna soften up and loosen up, get some organic matter in there. Especially where I live, it's all clay. You gotta give something to keep that clay from turning into a brick. So you get your soil conditioned, make yourself some nice 4-foot wide rows. You don't have to do these tight little rows. Just make it the widest thing that you can actually reach to the center of to tend it. You'll get more stuff going that way. And then hopefully you've got some way to get some seeds nearby, because if you don't have that, you're in trouble. But there's a few things you can, from the store, you can stick them in the ground, like potatoes. And you can start growing your own potatoes that way. There's a book.
I just take a potato from the sack.
Yeah.
Put it in the ground.
Well, you want to have an eye on it that's made a sprout. So, if you have a potato and you leave it, it'll get a little thing popping out of the eye. Right. So you can actually cut that potato up. So as long as each piece has an eye that has a little sprout on it, it should grow. Now, different potatoes, sweet potatoes are better for this. Like your good old russets or your Yukon Golds they're susceptible to mildew and other issues. Sweet potatoes and yams are a little bit better about this, but that's a great survival food right there is potatoes. And I don't have any potatoes. I'm gonna go this week. I'm gonna go down to the local hardware store, see if they have any seed potatoes left. But I gotta dig.
Proving the connection that this plague is because of the Irish.
Yeah, it's good. I'm bringing it full circle there. But this time of year, at least in the South, we're in sort of the salad greens season. You still got some cool nights. We might get one more frost. I don't know. So I feel bad for our friends up north, because they're going to have a much harder time with this. The South is just such a great place to grow, and there's so much more room. Anybody living in a city apartment, if you can get out, if there's a way for you to get out of there, just get out of there, because it's going to be. I mean, go watch some videos from Italy and how that's going there. It's pretty rough. You're gonna be stuck in your apartment for a long time. It's hard to think about.
I have engaged lockdown practices here, and it hasn't been too bad so far. But I haven't done any gardening. But I would say if you're gonna cattle rustle, we had some people kill our cows when we had cows. It's always a thing. It's always a thing.
People just do it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, they didn't take the cow; they just killed them. Oh. Now, I assume it was a person. It might have been one of these cattle mutilations, but it wasn't overly mutilated. It was just shot in the head. So I think it was just shot in the head. But I think what I recommend for cattle rustling is a crossbow or bow and arrow. Go in the middle of the night, right? And you look. A crossbow is much better for rustling because it doesn't make a big sound for the farmer to wake up.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Right. And go for these places. If you go way out in the country, they have really big ranches. They're not going to be anywhere around the periphery in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. Now you want to find one of the cows that's off to the side a little bit, because cows, they do not sleep standing up. I don't know who started. They sleep lying down like normal animals. And let me tell you, cows are not hard to shoot. They're not hard to stalk. They're very big, and they're used to people, so they don't mind if you get really close. You can walk right up to the fence and just kill it. And look, the best way.
I'm just imagining some city slicker that somehow has a crossbow. Maybe he's a Walking Dead fan or something. Shoots the cow in the head and then immediately thinks, "What am I going to do with this dead cow?"
Right. Well, you got to bring. This is what I was about to get to. You got to bring something. Look, a grown cow is very heavy.
Yeah.
You're not going to be hauling that out. You got to bring something with you to cut up the carcass. All right, so you bring your crossbow. This is cattle wrestling 101. You bring your crossbow, middle of the night, 2 a.m., when the farmer's asleep, far off in the corner. Mm-hmm. Find you a cow. You want to try to shoot it in the eye. Just put it down quickly without a lot of sound. Because let me tell you, if you shoot a cow and it doesn't die, it makes a lot of noise.
Oh, man.
I mean, it's just like, I don't know if you've ever heard a distressed cow.
No.
But it's something more like, but very loud. Something like that. We had a cow once. This is the trouble, and I wish I'd have got this on video, but it was before the cell phone revolution, and I don't know that I would have thought to do it anyway because I wasn't expecting it. But this may have been the only time in history this has ever been seen. We had this electric fence, right? And we moved it because we wanted them to go into a new pasture area, right?
Okay.
Eat the grass that we've been saving up for a while. So we moved the fence, and cows are very wary of going into a new area because they think, oh, that fence was there, and I'm gonna get shocked. But so they gradually get near it, and they test it, and they think, okay, it's okay, and they go over. And once one of them crosses, then it's easier for the rest to, right? Mm-hmm. But when you take down a fence, it takes cows sometimes like a week to get confident enough to go across from the barrier, because they're not very bright, and they just assume that it's the physical location that shocks them and not the object.
Gotcha.
So. But there was this one cow, and I guess, I don't know, maybe she'd gotten shocked real bad there before or something, but she just would not do it. She would prance up and down that fence line where it used to be, looking at all her friends eating that juicy, nice green grass with all the clover in it, And she was just going back and forth, just completely jealous out of her mind, but also terrified to cross the boundary. Right? And this went on for like 2 hours. Okay. And then finally, she just had enough. And she sort of backed up. And it's the only time I've ever seen this happen. She ran full speed at this thing and then attempted to leap over it. And like a grown cow is not a jumping animal.
No.
Like a calf can usually jump.
Uh-huh.
Like if a calf ever gets out of the pen, it can jump over its thing, right? Because it's still pretty nimble.
Yeah.
But a grown bovine, not a very nimble animal.
Okay.
So it just leaps in the air, legs sprawled out, and just lands smack on its belly on the other side. Just like that. Like someone hit a cow-made accordion. Just its belly just compressed. And then it rolls on the ground, stands up, and all the other cows just sort of look like, just sort of turn their heads in that very bovine way.
Right.
And then just stands up and starts eating because cows don't experience shame. But it was just the most ridiculous thing. And I've never seen a video of a cow jumping before. I might have been National Geographic or something. It did not land properly. No. But it did jump. But anyway, yeah. So if you want to cattle wrestle, bring a crossbow and something to cut off the legs. You want to cut off the legs, drag them back to the house.
That was a hanging a fence at one point. Cattle wrestling. May become a hanging offense again.
Maybe again, but until then, it's still, I think...
We're kind of in the in-between times right now.
I think in the in-between times, it's illegal to cattle wrestle, but I don't think the offense, I think you just have to pay a fine, probably. Yeah. And I don't know if the farmer's allowed to kill you, maybe. In probably like in New York, he's probably not, in New York State.
Yeah.
You just go cattle wrestle. I'm not advising our listeners to cattle wrestle, but, wink, wink.
It kind of sounds like you are a bit.
Yeah, I mean, like, wink, wink, if you're starving, first of all, try to pay the farmer. But if you won't, then, just, he's not going to miss one.
Your Federal Reserve notes are no good to me.
Yeah. The sheep are good. You can kill and carry a whole sheep, and you can kill a sheep just with a knife. You can just catch the sheep and slit its
Yeah.
throat.
If you remove the guts, field dress it, they're probably not that heavy. What, 80, 90 pounds?
Yeah, yeah. If you're a strapping fella, you can carry it. Don't even have to field dress it. You just kill that thing, throw it in the back of your van.
Yeah.
There you go. You got a good meal for a long time.
Yeah. There you go. All right, so Sumo advocates cattle rustling, Smokestack advocates gardening.
I was just saying if you had to.
There's a lot of squirrels in my yard. I think that's probably, and deer. That's probably how I'll be supplementing my family's protein intake.
I always
through the
worried
lean
about
times.
squirrels because I've heard they carry so much rabies.
Yeah. I think you gotta
squirrels.
observe the squirrel before you harvest it. Make sure it's not acting weird.
Right. I had a skunk with rabies one time. It was very upset.
Ooh.
It just spray at random. But anyway, foaming at the mouth, smelly skunk.
Well, if anybody decides that cattle rustling is not for them and wants to try gardening, there's a book called The Vegetable Gardener's Bible. If I had to recommend just one book, that's the most basic do-it-all gardening book for Dummies 101 that there is. And it's actually good because it goes plant by plant and tells you, here's what kind of weather this thing likes. Here's how to space it out. Here's how much water it needs. Here's when to harvest it. And then there's another book called Seed to Seed. And this is important because if the seed markets aren't up next spring, you're going to have to save seeds from your last harvest. And a lot of seeds, you can't just put seed in a plastic bag, plant next year. Some of them require some processing if you're actually going to get a plant. So all those instructions are very helpful. So before the Amazon delivery system totally breaks down, if you have plans on gardening, you may want to order the Vegetable Gardener's Bible and Seed to Seed. Also, the two best tools that you can have are a shovel and a hoe. Mm-hmm. Good old basic hoe. You can do everything with that. So the shovel is for preparing your beds and the hoe is for tending your garden.
How do you feel about people that call a shovel a spade?
I think they're weird, but I'll tolerate them.
Good. I feel like we're really helping people.
Well, this information may come in handy. I mean, my family's going to be on a gardening jihad for the next couple months. We're going to be ripping it up this year.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
You got to embrace the quarantine.
The plague is going to be better than you think. You know, that's my message.
It's an opportunity. Chaos is an opportunity to adapt and overcome and grow.
100%.
So we're introducing some chaos. And, while we're talking about the plague and the quarantine and stuff, there's going to be, and I'm assuming most of our listeners are Christian people. Uh-huh. There's going to be some opportunities here to care for widows and orphans in their distress. Oh, you know what I mean? There's going to be a neighbor somewhere, little old lady or whatever, or fill in the blank on who this person might be. Vulnerable person, may not be as equipped as you. Didn't build a giant throne of toilet paper over the last month. Either because she couldn't or just didn't think to do so. There's going to be some people out there that are going to prey upon people like that and steal from them when times get hard. And I hope that some of our listeners will look after those people who are going to be in a lot more need. Because, I also imagine, prepping is pretty prevalent in Christian circles, and it may be prevalent among our audience too. I never considered myself a prepper, but I do have, a modest stock of just gear, and I like the living that kind of self-reliant lifestyle just generally. So I think we'll be okay, if it gets pretty hairy over the next few months. But some of my neighbors won't be okay unless somebody helps them. And if you want to live out your faith, there's going to be plenty of opportunities to do it.
Also, if you're a single guy, it's a great time to pick up some ladies.
Yes.
Say hey, I have toilet paper.
Yeah.
That's probably all the pickup line you need these days.
I got the cleanest butt in this county.
And I'll give you some toilet paper.
In a time of dirty butts.
Yeah.
So I saw a great little comparison. Speaking of dirty butts, somebody overlaid a map of what percentage of people in each European country wash their hands after going to the bathroom,
Uh-huh.
and the rates of virus infection in those countries, and there is a high correlation.
Don't doubt it.
So
Don't doubt it.
Italy and Spain and France are the worst at hand washing of the major European countries, and they also have the worst outbreaks. Just saying, wash your hands.
I've been to France. It's true, the people are smelly.
Smelly and gross.
They're smelly, and I just think, I don't know. I don't want to blame the French.
Mm-hmm.
They say it's because the French culture grew up around that river there, and I don't remember the one in Paris, where there wasn't very much water all the time, so they had to conserve it. And to which I say, nonsense.
Yeah.
Because all the French people over the countryside are also smelly.
Yeah.
Can't blame it on just Paris, although the Paris people are the grossest. No offense to our French listeners, but you guys do need to wash your hands more.
Hygiene is key, especially in times of plague. I mean, this is
so key.
Hygiene is going to separate the livers from the dyers.
Hey, look, cleanliness is next to godliness.
Yep.
/ not having plague.
Yep.
Yeah. So, with that said, last time I brought up relativity, and you guffawed.
Okay.
Relativity? This is boomer talk.
Okay.
So now I want to go more into relativity.
All right.
And regarding the ETH. Any idea what that stands for?
Extraterrestrial what?
Hypothesis.
Okay.
And that is in paranormal circles, which you are all in now.
Mm-hmm.
There are UFOs. We all agree there are UFOs. But the ETH is the hypothesis that those UFOs can be mostly or totally explained by extraterrestrials coming from space. A lot of people these days, most people always in the UFO phenomena have had the ETH is sort of the default. Like when people get into UFOs, they instantly think, oh, well, it's got to be aliens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then as you stay in it longer, you think, well, maybe it's not aliens. Maybe it's, and you have all these other things. But I'm going to today go through what I think is the strongest defense of the ETH hypothesis. And it answers so many questions.
Okay.
So first of all, we got to think about what it would actually take. So a lot of people assume that, so we know now that they're probably not in our solar system.
Mm-hmm.
We've sent probes to most of the planets in our solar system, and most of them do not look like they have any life on them at all. If they do, maybe it's just bacterial, and definitely nothing that's what we would consider advanced life, right?
Okay.
So they got to be coming from some other star. Now that's a problem because stars are really far away from each other, and you have to go. It's usually assumed that to do that you have to go at light speed, right? But light speed is a problem because known physics says light speed is unless there's some loophole we don't know about, it's basically impossible to reach.
Okay.
So then you come up with all these exotic things like wormholes and warp drives and all these things in sci-fi to explain it. And you have to do that to make a sci-fi story believable. Because it doesn't make any sense to go kill Darth Vader and take 10,000 years to get there. Right. It's hard to write a story about that. So if for fictional purposes, they have to have these warp drive things, but and so it's usually been assumed that to do that, we or some other alien would need faster than light or light speed technology also. But this clever fellow, Dr. Kevin Knuth, who's a physicist, he gave a talk not long ago it was about a year ago now in Huntsville at the Space and Rocket Center there. And he talked about his talk on the great podcast by Greg Bishop, Radio Mysterioso, which I recommend to everyone. Radio Mysterioso. And I'm going to talk about his work now. But so here's the thing. Dr. Knuth realized that actually with known physics, you could get from star to star because of a thing called relativity. Now, relativity is this idea that as you go faster, as you approach the speed of light, time slows down and distances get shorter. So to explain this, you have to, I'm first going to explain it, and then I'm going to get into how it could be used for space travel.
Okay.
Right? This is very useful for spiritual things as well, because it makes you rethink your whole universe. Okay, so this is how Einstein came up with the theory of relativity. He was thinking about a train, or let's just say we have a train going past us. We're standing on the ground. Okay, train zooms past us. All right. Einstein asked the question: does the person on the train experience time the same way that I do on the ground, standing still? And for slow speeds, the answer is pretty much yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say we speed it up. So let's say we have a clock, and we'll have a special kind of clock that we can use because it's going to help us visualize it better. But it works for any clock. It's just harder to visualize. So let's say we have a clock on the train, and the clock is made thusly. There's a laser emitter on the ground that pulses, let's say, once a second or so. And it goes up, hits a mirror on the ceiling, and comes back down. And every time it does that, it counts 1, 2, 3, right? And that's your clock. Okay? Now, the person moving with the light, moving with the laser on the train, sees it go straight up and down. Boom, 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 right? But what if you're the person standing outside? Let's say the side of the car is clear, the side of the train car is clear, so you can look inside and see. Well, it's moving as far as you can tell, right? So the laser shoots up, but then as it moves, as it goes, let's say the train is going quite fast, like near the speed of light, so this is actually a measurable difference. As the light from the bottom starts going up, the mirror on the top, relative to you, is moving down the track. So as the light beam goes up to hit it, it appears to you to be cutting an angle. And it does the same angle back down, so it's making a triangle. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A little hard to think about, but yeah, but so if you're on the train, it looks like it's going straight up and down, but because it's moving, because when the light moves from the bottom, the top, before it gets there, the top mirror has also moved. When it hits that and comes back down, the bottom is also moved, right? And so from the perspective of the person standing outside the train, it looks like it's cutting a triangle, whereas from the person inside the train, it looks like it's going straight up and down. Okay. Now, here's the trick about relativity, is that the speed of light is constant in all reference frames. That means that so let's say that you're if I throw a baseball at 60 miles an hour, right? It appears to go 60 miles an hour away from me. Let's say, and you're standing next to me, it appears to go 60 miles an hour away, right? Let's say I'm standing on a pickup truck and I drive past you at 60 miles an hour, and then I throw a baseball at 60 miles an hour.
Yep.
To you, that looks like the baseball goes 120 miles an hour.
Okay.
I'm getting the boost from the truck, right?
Yep.
Okay. The thing with the speed of light is that doesn't happen. If I shoot a laser next to you, standing still, it appears from your perspective that the laser moves away at the speed of light. If I stand on a ship going past you at half the speed of light and I shoot a laser, it still appears to you to move away at the speed of light. Okay. That's the speed of light is constant no matter where you are. So think about your train again. To you, the laser is cutting a triangle. To the guy inside, it's cutting a straight line. But it's moving the same speed to both of you, but in one of you, it's going a longer distance. So if it's going a longer distance, right, then but the speed of light is traveling the same. The speed is the same, but the distance is longer. That means that in order to make those two realities match, time for the person on the moving train has to be moving slower than time for you, because it's going a shorter distance in the same amount of time. Okay. Make sense? Yes. Okay. So that's relativity. So you have to think about that. So then here's the thing. When you, and this actually works. I've seen this in person. Because I worked in a particle accelerator lab for a brief period in an undisclosed location. And what you would do is you would have radioactive particles, right? So radioactive, I don't know. I forget what we would use. But so let's say you have some radon or something, right? Okay. Half-life of radon is, I don't know, let's just, for easy math, let's say it's 10 seconds. That means that the radon will decay and give off its emission particles, which you can detect once every 10 seconds. But if you would accelerate it down these tubes at super high speeds, it would say last 12 seconds, 13 seconds. So you can also do this. You can test this with atomic clocks. We have very accurate clocks that we can synchronize perfectly. You synchronize them. You put one on the ground. You put one in a plane. You fly it around the Earth 4 times. You come back down, and it's off by like 4 or 5 seconds.
Wow.
Okay, that's because we're not traveling anywhere near the speed of light, but we are traveling fast enough for long enough to make up a detectable difference.
Okay.
So, and you have to account for this in satellites. Like satellites have to account for relativity in order to give you accurate distance measurements and things, because they're because of gravity and whatnot, they're actually moving at slightly relativistic speeds, where it actually has to be taken into account.
Okay.
So it's a real thing, and it works. But so what Dr. Knuth thought about is like, well, if your relativity works in your advantage, if you're a traveler in space. Because let's say I don't need to go the speed of light to get to, say, Alpha Centauri or Zeta Reticuli. I just hop in my spaceship and I go, let's say, 0.2% the speed of light. Well, all of a sudden, that distance gets really small. And he did some calculations. Like let me find them in my notes here. Okay, so let's say that you get in a spaceship. And we're travel at 1g acceleration. So the acceleration equal to 1 Earth gravity, right? Okay. You sit in your spaceship, the gravity you feel on the back of your chair is the same as if you just were to lie down on the ground on Earth. Okay, because acceleration is the same thing as gravity. Right. All right. So let's say that you do that. You travel at 1g. We're capable of we're probably capable of 1g. We know we're capable of 1g acceleration. Because jets can go faster. So let's say we get in the spaceship and we go 1g for 20 years. Okay. That's it would take you 20 years to get across the galaxy if you accelerate for 1g halfway across and decelerate. You get across the galaxy because the length of the galaxy, because you're building like 1g now, because you're building speed the whole time, so you're getting close to relativistic speeds. Okay. And so the length of the galaxy is contracting for you. So it's not really the top speed that's hard to achieve. It's the acceleration. Correct. Okay. Correct. All right. Because in space, there's no drag. There's no friction. There's no drag. As long as you're accelerating, if you just do that for years and years and years, you will get faster and faster and faster. Right. Right. Now, you can't accelerate all at one time because your body would explode. Like if you do 200 Gs at once, you just smashed against the back of the chair. Right. Whatever. All right. So, within human lifespans, you could go across the galaxy. Like so, let's say. All right. So let's say at 1g acceleration, it takes you. So let's do some math. So 4 months to get across the galaxy with 100 Gs. So 1G, 20 years. But this thing is an exponential. As you get closer to light speed, the length that you have to travel and the time that lengthens out for you expands, right? Okay. So 4 months, at 100 Gs, it would take you about 4 months to get across the galaxy. So accelerating from 100 Gs to the midway point, then decelerating 100 Gs from the end. Now, it takes you 4 months. But the end of the galaxy for us here on Earth is 80,000 light years away, right? So from the people on Earth, it would take you 80,000 years to get to the other side. Okay. So you're in your spaceship and you have got to the end of the galaxy and you've aged 4 months, but back on Earth, it's 80,000 years in the future. So humans could survive the trip, but if you came home again, everybody would be dead. For thousands and thousands of years. Yeah. Right. This is why it's very hard to make a sci-fi story with that, because like you gotta, as Dr. Knuth said, you gotta go kill Darth Vader and be home for dinner. You can't go kill Darth Vader and then be home and the civilization has been dust for 1 million years. Right. It's a bummer. It's like, well, why did we do that? Right. It's so there was a great book about this called Forever War, where this guy had to go fight aliens, and then he comes back after his tour of duty, and it's like 50,000 years in the future, and he doesn't fit in at all, and he's like a caveman, And so then he just decides to go back to the front lines and just fight forever, because why would it matter, right? Like, so, so if you do some more, so it takes you 4 months, right? So you could do this 4 times in a year. Or I'm sorry, you could do this 3 times in a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could go around 300,000 years into the future doing this, right? But in that time, so you go back across the galaxy like 3 times, right? And if you did that every day, every year of your life, let's say you travel 50 years, that's a nice human lifespan of traveling. Like you grow up, then you go out into space and you travel. You would travel 1.5 million years into the future over 5 years. And over 60 years, you would travel 12 million years into the future.
This is at 100 Gs?
Yeah. So because space travel at high speed is time travel, but only forwards. You never go backwards. You're just jumping constantly forwards into the future.
I don't know why, but that just horrifies me.
It's very scary, right? So you would be 12 million years old to the people on Earth, but you yourself would have only aged 50, 60 years.
Okay.
Okay, so this opens up some interesting ideas, because one, let's say that you're a society that has done this. You've achieved these relativistic speeds, right? How would you have to live? Because one of the things is, like, it's always been assumed, like, people will say, like, well, you could do it, but no society would ever do that, because you couldn't. There'd be no cohesion, right? You just people be just, but no. What if you become not only space nomads? We have space nomads. They live in different places. But in this society, you would also become a time nomad. Right? So if you're a society with relativistic space travel, you become a space-time nomad. And what would you do? Well, when you would have meeting points and a system where you could say, like, well, we meet at this specific star on these different periods, right? And you could sync up your calendars and say, well, I'm going to go off over here and explore Zeta Reticuli. You go off over to that end of the galaxy and explore Betelgeuse. And then we'll meet back at this other point, and we calculate, it'll be 5 months for us. I'm going to travel at like 0.6 C. You're going to travel at 0.4. So it's going to be like, it's going to be about 6 months for me. It's going to be about 4 months for you. We'll meet back around Earth in that time. Okay. But when they do that, from the people of Earth's standpoint, that's been thousands of years. So
essentially, if you're a relativistic speed space nomad, you've sort of left your planet behind.
You leave your planet behind, right? And you have to have rendezvous points in space and in time where you meet together with your clan, your tribe. Okay. So this makes so many UFO things make sense. Like, people always say, well, why don't they ever come down and talk to us? Like, well, there's really no point in making friends in this society, because by the time you come back, everyone's been dead 10,000 years.
Right.
Right. And it's also why people say, well, look, they had UFO sightings in ancient Rome, which they did. There's this one great account of this general. He said, in the sky appeared these things. They looked like flaming shields. Right. This very disc-shaped sort of thing. So, and they said, well, okay, that's been 2,000 years. Why is their technology the same? Like, why haven't they advanced?
Oh.
It's like, well, because for them, that was only last week.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
For them, they haven't had time to do it because that was only a week ago.
Yeah.
Right? For them. It also, you can play with this ancient aliens, gods sort of thing, like, because you're basically immortal to the people on Earth. Like, let's say there's an alien named Thor, and he comes down and he interacts with people in Finland 50,000 years ago. And then he goes away and he comes back, and it's 20,000 years. He hasn't aged a day. He looks just the same.
Yeah.
You basically become immortal. It's also why maybe there's in the UFO lore, there's a lot of stuff about the UFOs are always around military bases and checking them out. Okay. Right, especially during the Cold War and the nuclear missiles and stuff. Well, that would make sense, because let's say there's a place you like to come to a lot. Like maybe they like Earth. Maybe it's strategically situated in the galaxy for some reason for rendezvousing. Maybe they need the water. Maybe they enjoy the oxygen. Maybe they just like the view. It's one of the prettier planets to look at. Maybe they like to visit here. For whatever reason, maybe you come here a lot, right? We don't know why. But it would make sense that you would want to, because if you're going and every time it's 10,000 years later, you would want to keep maybe tabs on the violent species that lives there, because you don't want to come back next time and just run into a space force.
Right.
Right. It's like, are they going to, if we come back in 20,000 years, are they going to have like lasers pointed at us on space, on the moon? Because that would really mess up our plans.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you adopt this lifestyle of space nomadry, you gain sort of immortality, but you also maybe lose strategic advantage, because you could come back next week and just be completely overwhelmed by people that were previously throwing spears. It makes things very weird, right? But it could be done this way. So
this really sounds like a bummer, because it's a sort of immortality, but you don't experience it yourself. Just the other people that see you, planetary people, experience your immortality, but you don't.
Well, 100%. But also think about this: you could do some crazy experiments. Like you could say, well, let's pick up Billy Bob there and let's alter his DNA slightly, and with some probing, and let's come back 2,000 years and see how his genetic line has been affected.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see how we can do that. That'll take like 3 months. We can go hang out at Alpha Centauri for a minute and come back, see how our experiment went. You could affect evolutionary things. You could try all sorts of weird experiments. You could, and also here's the thing. What would you do? What happens if you miss your rendezvous? Right. So you get together and you say, here's where we're going to meet again. Right. You need some system in place to leave a message for like, okay, you got delayed for some reason. Here's how you sync back up with us. Right. You went off to Zeta Reticuli. You got delayed for some reason. You didn't make the rendezvous. Now we've jumped into the future ahead of you. Right. How do you meet back up with your tribe? Well, you'd want to leave some sort of message, like maybe in a pyramid or some sort of stonework that would last for a long time. Or maybe like on Antarctica or something that would have some code in it to be like, oh yeah, and here is how we meet again. Like we're going to meet again. Like here's the coordinates for the next rendezvous. Like a little obelisk on the moon or on Mars, like they found that time. Like on the Phobos, there's this weird obelisk on the thing. And you think, what could that be? What is that about, right?
So yeah, I guess if you're leaving a non-relativistic note for a relativistic space nomad, it's got to be very durable.
Exactly. You got to make it out of stone or some sort of thing on or maybe in the DNA of a species. You could say you could leave a message. Because, a lot of it's easy to imagine you could encode a message in DNA, right? That would persist. And then you just have to abduct the person and draw out their DNA to see where your buddies are meeting next week for mimosas. And that could be all it is. It's like, well, we gotta get Sally up here and draw some blood to see where we're going to have our, meeting on the Space Cayman Islands or whatever. So we can get together. And you could do that. You could do it in stoneworks. It makes so much of the UFO lore suddenly pop into sense that I worry it could be true.
There's no friggin' way.
I don't know. I mean, think about it. We are a space traveling society, just not very much. But we make machines that go to other worlds in the solar system.
I've got to reject this on aesthetic grounds.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, but but so Knuth comes up with what we'll call the Knuth scale of space traveling society. Okay, class 0, this is unable to reach orbital speeds. These are different societies. Class 1, you can get into orbit and their own moon. All right, so we've done that.
Yep.
Class 2A, system bound. You can visit other bodies in the solar system at orbital speeds. We can do that right now with machines, not with people. We could conceivably maybe do it with people, but we've only done it with probes so far. But we've sent probes to every planet in our solar system. So we're a 2A, right? Class 2B system is still a civilization, is still system bound and less than 1% the speed of light. So we can get to Jupiter in a matter of days, but still not fast enough to get to stars. Okay. So that's the next goal. Class 3A is near interstellar. That's 1 to 10% the speed of light. They can get to nearby stars within 5 years, give or take. Okay. This is doable.
Okay.
3B is 10 to 30% the speed of light, which provides you basically galactic travel over the course of a human lifetime.
Okay.
If you can get 10 to 30% the speed of light, you can travel the galaxy. You're a galactic civilization at that point. If you choose to adopt a nomadic lifestyle.
Right.
Because this is the problem. You're always jumping into the future. You can never go back. Anytime you travel through space, you're also boom, boom, boom into the future. Right? It's very sort of scary, but it's also romantic in a way. You know? But it's not inconceivable that if you had this technology that someone would choose to do it. So then we have, now, 30% the speed of light is sort of chosen for an engineering problem region. Like class 3B goes from 10 to 30% the speed of light. And this is because at about 30% the speed of light, or below about 30%, a titanium or aluminum hull of reasonable thickness could provide you sufficient protection against the inflow of radiation. Because you're shooting through the universe at high speeds, right? And you're encountering all these particles that are going in, and you could shield them. But about that, you're flying through particles, and it begins to look to you like they're cosmic rays. Like you're coming at them so fast.
Gotcha.
They transform into basically rays that you're just bursting through. So then you have this big radiation problem. So you have an engineering challenge. Okay. But then if you can overcome that somehow, and that's not a small engineering challenge, and you can get beyond that, then you become a class 4 society, which is a relativistic interstellar. That's 30 to 60% C. This is where Knuth proposes that UFOs would be based on their perceived characteristics.
Okay.
Like the Tic Tac incident, which I haven't gone over, but maybe they're familiar with, is a well documented. The U.S. Navy even admitted that the video footage was real in the 2000s of a. It looked like a little, like, you know, the Tic Tacs you eat, like a Tic Tac pill.
Yeah,
like
little pill shape.
Yeah, it looked like that, and it was encountered by, I believe, it was an aircraft carrier and maybe a destroyer.
Yeah.
And they caught it on video, this object moving at super high speeds. And then the people said it just, quote, impossibly fast was across the horizon and away. Now, to do impossibly fast, you have to do about, these are the G's of like, if you get 200 G's or something like that, you would, that when you approach, if you can do 200 G acceleration, that's impossibly fast. That's where you're able to do this blink of an eye across the horizon. So
how does someone's body survive this?
Well, that's an engineering challenge. You'd have to do some very interesting things with space. So this is why you're a very advanced civilization. But now, this is another. You come up with another space travel thing at 70% the speed of light, because here, the little particles that are in space is not totally empty. There's some tiny little protons floating around and stuff, right? But when you're moving at 70% the speed of light, you've basically created a chair in a particle accelerator.
Okay.
You're just, so you're just zapping yourself. So that's another huge engineering problem. So there's probably like a limit that you hit at like 30% the speed of light. Then there's another limit you hit at like 70% the speed of light where you have to deal with these things, right?
Right.
And then it just goes up a bit from beyond there. And a class X society is faster than light. It's no longer relativistic. You can instantly get across the galaxy, wormhole technology, that sort of thing, like we see in Star Trek.
Gotcha. Okay,
so the thing is, we sort of know that this could be possible because, like I said, we're a 2A system, class society now. We are system bound, but we can visit other bodies. But there's a NASA's working on a thing right now called Project Starshot, which is the goal is to send a small probe about the size of a cell phone to Alpha Centauri, right? And the goal is to do this by the year 2070. So you would accelerate it constantly, right, the whole way, and it would get up to about 20% the speed of light. And it would take you about 20 years in this thing to get to Alpha Centauri in our time. So we could be, within our lifetime, be able to send an object to the nearest star. Maybe. So if that's possible, you begin to see these opening windows of like, well, maybe this could actually happen. And then you say, well, maybe someone else has already done it. And then you say, well, maybe they're the ones that built the pyramids. And then you go into this whole, right? Because if this is true, this makes it makes the if there is this, it makes all the UFO lore sort of lock into position. Like that's why they behave the way they do. Because their motions are constant, not only motions in space, but motions in time.
But what's in it for a terrestrial civilization to just send a bunch of people and resources and work off into relativistic nomadism, never to be seen again?
Well, nothing except that perhaps it's a breakaway civilization. Like the thing is, if we had that technology, some people would do it.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I think like I remember some people have already pledged that they would go on a one-way trip to Mars with no hope of return and just die there.
Yep.
People are crazy. You could, if you had this technology, you could easily get a couple 10,000 people to live this way, maybe more. And then they're procreating as they're going. They're making more species, right?
And how do you even like service your ship and maintain it? I guess you just travel. You just travel the galaxy until your ship breaks down and then you die. And in your experience, that could happen over a course of a few months or a couple of years. But you would visit the future.
Yeah, I mean, it would be it'd be like a people getting on a boat to go around the Earth. I mean, like, you know, it was very hairy the first couple of times you did it, but maybe maybe you just want to try.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you plan to land in the future. Yeah,
right. You plan to land in the future. So, this could also be like, you know, like a lot of the UFO lore states that their species has degraded biologically.
Yeah.
That's why they need our DNA, right? Or something like that. Some sort of kooky thing like that. Well, then you say, well, okay, maybe and maybe that's why they're jumping into the future, because they're hoping for a cure later. Right?
Okay.
You like, I have a problem. What do? We can't figure out how to fix it. We need more time. Let's just jump into the future. Or maybe someone's fix it.
Right. So as long as everybody that wants the cure is on the boat, it's worth it.
Right.
Okay. Right. So breakaway civilization.
You can come up with all these different scenarios of and you know, the Illuminati conspiracies always said they're trying to join a breakaway civilization. Maybe they're trying to join the aliens. I don't know. I just threw that out there. But you get into these interesting things pretty quickly when you think about, well, what if there's a relativistic spectrum? And another thing that would happen is that it really wouldn't make sense to do like radio communications for that sort of species. Like all of our SETI stuff, you know, we're listening for alien communications and stuff. Wouldn't make sense because they're probably not doing it because, you know, it'd be like calling someone, like Greg Bishop said, it'd be like calling someone and saying, hey, I'm in the driveway.
Right.
You can move almost as fast as your radio broadcast.
Right.
Right. So you would by the time you sent it and waited for the return, you could just be there. Right. Now, maybe you would broadcast out a signal that people could pick up if they missed your rendezvous or something. Mm-hmm. But that's a little bit harder to imagine. I think you'd have to build a pyramid in Antarctica.
Yeah, it makes more sense. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, that's that was just I think that
seems so hopeless to me, though.
Make a lot of sense.
But like that as a lifestyle, so you don't extend your own life, but I mean, I guess you get to see the future.
You get to see the galaxy.
Okay, that's worth something.
You could go see whatever there was to see in if you can.
But what if there's nothing? What if there's nothing? What if it's just a bunch of dead planets forever?
It could be, which is really depressing. But you wouldn't know unless you checked, and maybe that's why they spread out. Like, hey, you go look over there. We don't have enough lifetime to visit all of it, so we'll split up. You go over there, look over that side of the galaxy. I'll go over here. You guys go over there, and we'll meet back in 3 months, our time, at say Earth, which will be 5,000 years in the future. Like maybe the reason there's a huge uptick right now in UFOs is because all the people are sort of coming back to this one vague rendezvous point plus minus 100 years. Like, all right, we're going to hit 1960 Earth, and plus minus 50 years, and the message will be there. We're going to leave it on the moon.
So if we do know, if we have ever met a time traveler, he's probably like a caveman.
You're right. To us,
because he's from the past.
Which is, of course, what happened in the Tower of Babel, right?
What?
That's my favorite sci-fi take on the Tower of Babel. The tower was actually a rocket.
Okay.
Going to take off in an ancient society, right? I always like that idea. I don't think it's true, But this ancient aliens idea, like human civilization used to be way more advanced than degraded, which I think is true to a degree. I think something like Atlantis is probably real.
Persuaded by that argument, yeah.
But I don't know that they actually reached the stars or whatever. But yeah, so I think now there's a problem in there with the twin paradox, which is too hard to explain. And when you think about, because you think about like, well, if they're moving fast and everything's relative, then why don't I not age and relative to them, and they're the ones that get older, right?
I don't even understand the problem.
Okay, if you haven't come up with a problem, then don't worry about it.
Okay.
But I'll just say this: every explanation on the internet of the twin paradox is incorrect.
Okay, gotcha.
Even physicists, they're all like, well, it's because one of them had a change in acceleration, and the other one is like, no, you dummy, you can do the thought experiment where there's no change. You just have 3 ships, and you don't need acceleration. Everyone's retarded about that, but there is an explanation for it that actual people that think about it have come up with.
That's good. It's good to know that somebody is working these things out.
Someone is working these things out.
I'll sleep better tonight.
Now I feel like all of our MAPS members are better prepared to interact with extraterrestrials should they be abducted by a UFO, or should they, which is a big concern for me. I'm always worried about being abducted by a UFO. And I think a lot of our listeners are too. And, a lot of them are truckers. They sleep on the side of the interstate at night.
Yeah, easy target.
Easy target to be abducted. Yeah. Or if you're a police officer sitting in your squad car in, say, small town Maine,
they'll suck you right up.
Yeah, they suck you right up, and because you're out. It's the middle of the night. You get up. You're a little portly, because you're getting on in age. Miss Mabel just cooked you a blueberry pie, which is real nice. You get up in the night because someone has called you and said the Whitaker boys are making hay down by the dam again, and you got to go
rustling cattle.
You gotta go. Give them what for. You get in your squad car. You're driving through the pines in the middle of the night. Drinking your black coffee, and then you see this bright light just flood your car. And, then it's the X-Files music plays.
Yep,
happens more often than we like to admit.
Okay.
So this, I think Dr. Knuth made a good defense of the ETH. Not sure that I buy it. Like I said, there's a lot of problems with it, but that is the best. But now you know. Now you know what to do if you do encounter an alien. It's
interesting. I kind of want to do some relativity experiments with the atomic clock.
Yeah, you can. Atomic clocks are expensive.
Are they?
But we can get one. We can get one. We can get 2.
We'll work on that.
Do this.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll fill out a budget request with the home office for that.
We'll crowdsource it. This will be our second Patreon. Our first Patreon is throw your money in the river to stop worshiping men.
It's been fun, Sumo.
It's been fun. Good luck with the plague, everybody.
Good luck with the plague. Don't cattle rustle.
Unless you have to.
Just garden. Gardening's great.
Hamburger, bang, bang.
How dare you?